Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Patient Convert podcast. I am really excited about today's episode. He is not gray haired, but a gray hair in the podcast industry. He has been around for a long time. His podcast is Outcome Rockets, is Saul Marquez. Saul, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited about talking about podcasting today, but take the start and introduce yourself and talk about a bunch of the hats that you wear too.
Hey, Justin, I really appreciate it. And folks, thanks for tuning in today. Such a pleasure to be spending time with all of you. Man, what an opportunity to be on your podcast, Justin. First of all, I want to say thank you. The work that you do, I'm a big fan, and how you do it is unique. So lots to learn. I actually, since I had you on my podcast, I've been listening to a couple of yours, completely just insightful. So
thank you very much.
Oh my God. Yeah. Thanks for what you do and how you do it. And so look, I started when I was a kid. My parents got married really young. And so when growing up, all their friends were getting married. And I was like, 3, 4, 5 years old at all these weddings. I've been to so many weddings.
That's
And
crazy.
one of those weddings, Justin, I was singing the song and my dad's like, "Hey, why don't you get up there with the band and sing it?" And I was like nervous as hell. I was like, "Oh my God." And then I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." And then I got up there and it was magical because, there's this kid singing and I was like nervous, but at the end I just remembered the applause.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, that was
something clicked.
Yeah, man. It was just like a moment for me that became the beginning of my love for communication
I love
and
that.
the
That's great.
beginning of my love for telling stories,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, if it fast forward to college, I was in speech and debate, and now I'm in podcasting, right? So I've got this love for podcasting. I also have a love for healthcare, just like you. And, my love for healthcare is, I've been in the med device space for the last 15 years, and there's always an opportunity to do better for the world. And healthcare is just one of those spaces that helps you do that every single day. Every doctor that you help with their practice, everything that you do helps people's lives. So yeah, that's my story in short. And, we started the Outcomes Rocket podcast in 2016. With that, we've been able to grow significantly to reach a broad audience and help healthcare leaders. If you're a healthcare leader listening to this, whether a physician or a company, we help power up your mission and help you reach many people to make it happen. So John, that's a nutshell intro to me.
I love it. I love it. So jumping right in to that point, I'd love to learn a little bit because you and I actually talked about it kind of after we had recorded the podcast, but how in your journey, kind of going back to your day job that you mentioned, being in med device, but using podcasting as a conduit, which we'll get into the other stuff that you are doing and have been able to do as a result of all your knowledge in podcasting, but specifically to your day job. For listeners out there, especially physicians, healthcare businesses looking to grow, what is your experience and how are you using podcasting to grow your day job and increase your sales and all of that stuff?
Yeah, Justin, great question. And so, folks, at my day job, I'm a VP of sales at Medtronic. And so I lead an organization and their commercial efforts in the West Zone of the United States. And look, on the podcasting front, the podcast is a great tool to open up doors to people that, otherwise, why do you want to talk to somebody that's wanting to sell you something? The podcast offers an opportunity for you to give. And so, you offer an opportunity to somebody to basically showcase their career, highlight the things that make them a thought leader. You're offering them something that a friend would offer a friend, is help to succeed, right? And so in doing that, I'm not only creating content for my podcast, I'm helping them shine a light on their career and their expertise. And what happens as a natural result of that? It's human reciprocative nature. Hey, well, how can I help you? And so a lot of these conversations turn into, how can I help you? And that's the power of the podcast funnel. And I share this with everybody, Justin. You know this very well. The podcast funnel has two sides. On the one side, it's got the listener base. That's everybody listening today. Hi. and so it's, through repetitive content, you establish an opportunity for people to know, like, and trust you and your brand and your voice. It's funny. I was sitting at a healthcare conference. We went to a dinner. I was invited to a dinner. Sitting at the table, this guy's like, "Wait a minute. are you Saul from Outcomes Rocket? Like, dude, it would even
Voice
make it up.
recognition.
You
That is excellent.
recognize my voice. And I'm
I
like, all
love
right,
it.
cool, man. This thing's working out.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
That you made it then.
yeah, you know what, Justin and everybody, like it is, and like there's nothing that compares to podcasting because the listener makes a choice to hit play because you're offering value to them and they're listening. There's basically a one-on-one conversation between you and them and the guest that you have, which usually is an expert. And so that listener side of the funnel is that opportunity. It's mid to long-term ROI, the listener side of the funnel.
Sure, I agree with that.
Right now, the guest side of the funnel, the people that you have on your podcast is short-term ROI because you're able to have conversations. And if something happens conversation wise with you guys, you hit it off, there's an opportunity for you guys to help each other. That's where the ultimate impact is. And so in short, it's a great opportunity to get introductions, do networking, and offer value to people.
I love it. And I've got to, of course, pick your brain for as long as you've been podcasting. For the listeners out there that either want to start podcasting or have a podcast they're struggling to grow or they're struggling to make it a solid sales channel, is the biggest tip or tips that you've learned in your podcasting journey for them to succeed in their podcasting journey?
So, Justin, is the question like mainly around monetization? Is it around
No, more
building?
around just growing your podcast and
Oh,
creating something that has an avid listeners,
yeah.
all of that type of stuff. So just kind of getting solid foundation in your journey because it's something like 90% of podcasts never make it off of the ground, so to speak, and
Yeah.
never get lift off.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you for the question. The biggest thing you could do is create content, do interviews. And the area that I find, Justin, where a lot of people fail is they get stuck with the technical aspects of like there's so many places to get stuck. There's the editing, there's the show notes, there's the inviting the guests that take at least 8 invites to say yes, right? There's the show notes. There's so many things that you could get stuck on. I would tell you, find a way to system and optimize the process. The more you could automate, the better. Using things like Calendly to book appointments versus back and forth invites is an example of that.
Yeah, that's a huge time saver.
Yeah, you do that too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I do. I use it for everything, even for scheduling out sales stuff on the business side. It's just such a huge time saver for both sides.
Yeah. And so that's an example of, accessible tools that can help you with scalability. Because guess what? When push comes to shove, as business leaders and, care providers, we do what makes our business tick. And the podcast falls by the wayside. And it just happens. So
Oh yeah, 100%.
systemize. Another thing you could do, I'll share one more thing, is batch recording. So, if you have a show, and by the way, the more the better. So the more episodes you do, the better. Because if you have a show, like our show, we do 5 a week, right? And so
That's impressive too. I commend you for that.
but it's a commitment that leads
Oh,
to
it is.
success and growth.
Yeah.
So people subscribe to podcasts and all of a sudden they keep seeing you. And the podcast feed is like a Twitter feed where it just keeps pushing down. The latest stay on top, right? It's not as bad as Twitter, but the more podcasts you put out there, the more you're on top and the higher the likelihood that somebody's going to click and listen, right? So that's definitely something that you want to try to produce as much content as you can and batch record. So what that means is set up a couple times in the week where you could record 2 interviews or 3 interviews. In 1 week, you could record 6 interviews and then you space it out and you drip it, whether you're doing 2 a week or 1 a week. And it really helps optimize your calendar so you could focus your time on selling, on operations, and everything else that you need to do for the business.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I'd say that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in our podcasting journey that I was kind of unaware of and naive. I didn't seek out enough advice from people like yourself when starting ours. And I should have known it because it's a tried and true lesson that we preach in video content creation is if you don't get ahead, you're constantly chasing and you're trying to do 2 things. You're trying to create good content and create engagement and distribution around that content simultaneously, which is difficult to do either of those, much less both of them at the same time. And if you get ahead of it, I think Neil Patel was a big one in our space that really preached that because he produced such a crazy amount of content. He's like, it's got to be a minimum of 1 month ahead because then you're ahead of the ball game and you're always just purely focusing on content engagement and content distribution in that month.
Yeah.
And that was a hard lesson for us, I think, for podcasting, is trying to make sure every Tuesday we were releasing when we weren't doing any type of batch recording ahead of time. And that's how you end up getting choppy in your releasing and inconsistent. And I wish I had done that and sat down and like recorded 5 to 10 and then almost released them like seasons. Cause then you're just focusing on rebuilding the pipeline of good episodes and focusing on creating evergreen content out of those episodes. And so I think that's a key thing for the listeners. If you're going to do podcasting, create a process and get ahead of it. I'd love to hear a little bit more, because you went to the extreme on the process side, because I completely agree, because that was another struggle we had to learn. But you went so far and refined it and perfected it so much, you actually started a business around it.
Yeah. And look, I want to, Justin, here's what I want to tell you is I believe that anytime that you're stuck, mentors are there to help you. And at the very beginning of my journey, I looked at the space and I said, who's a leader in this space? And I found this guy. His name is John Lee Dumas. He has this podcast called Entrepreneur on Fire. I don't know if you've ever heard of the guy.
I have heard of that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I reached out to John and I said, hey, and it happened to be that he was raising money for a book. So I donated money to a book that he was writing. And that got me 2 days with him in Puerto Rico. So I spent 2 days at John's house with his girlfriend, Kate. I think it's fiance now. And I literally downloaded with John on what it's going to take to be successful in podcasting. And that turned the corner for me. I went from struggling to now having a roadmap of success. And so my tip here for folks is, if you don't know, man, don't try to make it up. Find somebody that knows how to do it. And so I'll share with you now, and thanks for teeing up this thing. So 2 years ago, we fired our production company because they really weren't hitting our quality specs that we were looking for. So it forced us to start from the beginning and create our own production company for ourselves. And so I reached out to a good friend of mine that had started a business in this space, again, finding that mentor, and hired him as a consultant to help us build out our production firm. And the main purpose was for us to have a sustainable, scalable internal mechanism to roll with it. And we did it. And then friends started reaching out and they're like, hey man, like, you have this machine. Can you just help me create my podcast? And I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to like lose focus, but eventually I said, okay, there's something here.
Yeah.
And that's when we started inviting people to take advantage of the systems that we've built. And much like AWS, right? They needed their systems to run their business.
Yep.
And they're like, holy crap, we could sell cloud and
such a good mousetrap. They're like, oh, we got to deliver this to the masses.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it happened. And so today we have a cool program that we invite only qualified folks to that are in healthcare. It's called the Sponsored Host Program. So in this program, we literally take you under our wing. We build the podcast for you and we launch it underneath our network of podcasts that have the 85,000 plus downloads a month. We enable your success. We put you through the machine, and it gives you everything from booking your appointments to doing your show notes to editing the podcast to sharing them on social media, getting you the graphics. All you have to do is show up and record and send us either the link to the cloud recording or the actual file, and everything's done for you. The pipeline's built for you. The listener base is built for you. And now it's a great tool for folks to grow their business, and it's taken off, man.
That's fantastic. And I could not encourage, especially physicians, from a time value of money, their time being so precious. And honestly, no matter what content segment you choose to go down, whether it's video or it's writing or it's podcasting, I highly recommend investing in having other people help you execute on it, because your time is worth so much. And in podcasting in particular, we use a really similar service as well, that I literally have to just drop my content when I wrap an episode in Google Drive and they handle it. Because I found it was worth the investment, because the reality is if I was going to continue down the journey, I was never going to succeed, because I was going to lose focus on the podcast if I didn't have that type of help. And I could not encourage physicians in particular more. If you're going to invest in podcasting, invest in putting people or a system around you that can allow you just to focus on recording, focus on creating good content, and let them handle the rest. Otherwise, unless you're super techie, which is probably 0.01% that could pull that off by themselves, invest in it and into something like what you're offering.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. I agree with you 100%. And look, and the other thing I'll share with you is this is like if you have a thought and your thought is telling you there's something here for my business, there's something here for my practice, I would tell you do it. You know what? Short story, when Bitcoin first came out, I bought some Bitcoin and you get these electronic wallets. This was early on, right? And this is a regret story, by the way.
I was like, are you a millionaire because
No,
of Bitcoin?
I'm not a Bitcoin millionaire. And so anyway, I was having fun with it. We would go to these restaurants and I would find restaurants that would take Bitcoin. I would find
Yeah.
things that I could buy with Bitcoin. And my wife was like, "You're such a geek." And we just like, I remember sitting at
Let me
this
do my
restaurant.
thing.
You're like, "Can I pay you with Bitcoin?" I looked it up. Yeah, you can actually. Sweet. The wallets used to tell you not to save your wallet password on electronically. So I didn't. And then I lost my physical wallet with my code.
Oh,
And so I did the math. It wasn't going to be that bad. It was like 50K that I lost. It sucked.
oof. Oof.
But here's the bigger regret, Justin. Here's the bigger regret is my feeling inside of me said, okay, this happened. I need to get some more. I just need to get some more Bitcoin because I think there's something here.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it. I let the fear of and mistrust of maybe it's not going to work or whatever because I lost my wallet. I said, I'm not going to do this. And I look back now at that stupid decision. I knew inside of me that I should have done it. And the
Yeah.
risk was very small. And I ended up not doing it. And I think the story would have been completely different. So my message to everybody today is if you feel like there's something here, just do it. Don't have the regret that I had with that Bitcoin story that I'm sharing with you, because there's an opportunity for you to create your business success through podcasting.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it all to just simplify the whole entire thing. And I think it's a lesson that we talk about a lot is you can't be afraid of doing it. You just have to start and you'll learn lessons along the way. And it may be uncomfortable when you're starting. We have to constantly teach physicians how to really be in front of the camera and not like ramble on because they're so education at heart. But it really is purely plain and simple. People even ask us is how we got into our content journey, how Kelly became such a large influencer on LinkedIn. It's like we started with very, very limited knowledge and we asked the right questions along the way by seeking the right people who are doing the right things and learning from them and not being afraid to trip and fall and learn hard lessons and go back to the drawing board and figure out how to do it better. But it all starts with literally getting started. Otherwise, you can't learn.
Yeah. No, well said,
Just got to get started. All right. So another question going back to your podcast in particular is if somebody wants to go and check out Outcome Rockets, where do you recommend that they start from an episode standpoint that gives them a good introduction to who you are, what they're going to learn on their journey listening to your podcast?
Yeah. Look, we've done over 1,000 episodes. We depending on what you like, I would tell you just in your favorite podcast platform. And actually, we talked about this last time, right, Justin? You go into any platform, you type in a topic of your choice and episodes come up from many different podcasts. So what I would suggest you do is type in Outcomes Rocket, space in between, and then whatever your topic of choice is, whether it's diabetes, whether it's payer reform, whatever's on your mind, Outcomes Rocket, and then whatever topic you want to learn more about. We likely have several episodes about it because we cover the healthcare continuum and, the $3.7 trillion US healthcare economy. We cover a lot within it. So go to your favorite podcast platform. And what do I mean by that? Either Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Spotify or iHeartRadio or Podbean. You get what I'm saying? And then just type in Outcomes Rocket and then whatever afterwards, topic wise, and you'll see what you want there. If you're looking for an opportunity to do something more with your business, and you want to explore if it's a fit, our sponsored host program, you could send me an email personally. It's saul@outcomesrocket.com. That's SAUL at outcomesrocket.com.
Excellent. And I had one other question to that. We had talked about this actually before, because anybody that's listened to our podcast knows SEO, search engine optimization, is one of my first loves. And so I was curious, I was talking to you actually, again, seeking out an expert in the space's advice on SEO for podcasting. To just your point, is what should you as a podcaster be doing to get more visibility out of your podcast? But I think interesting in your response, your individual episodes as you release them.
Yeah. So it's the power of the platform, right? So like when you think about SEO, you're pretty much thinking about Google, but SEO also applies to, and Google is a platform, but all of the podcast platforms are also, you got to think about your SEO. That's micro SEO.
Yeah.
But
And
and
how
then
that platform is structured in terms of finding content.
Exactly. It is the worldwide podcast web, right? And it captures everything you put in there. So be thoughtful about your titles, but also be thoughtful about your show notes. And the core of it is starts with where you host the episode. So whether you're doing it yourself or having somebody else do it for you, your host, whether it's Anchor or Libsyn or any one of those, that's the heart of it, and that's where it gets distributed from. So be thoughtful of your title and your show notes. Make sure that they have the keywords that you want to be plugging in there, and so that's on the platform. And then on your website, I strongly encourage you guys to take a look at a player that has transcripts in it. And they have a lot of different options out there, but it's a player transcript. If you're curious about it, go to outcomesrocket.health. That's what we use. We have a platform that you literally hit play, but all of the transcript is there, and it's embeddable. It's an embeddable text that Google crawls. So every single podcast word that you say then becomes organically, beneficial to your search results on a Google search.
Yeah, I think that's great advice too. Yeah, creating what ends up really being a blog out of your show notes, I think is too often missed. And that is from a Google standpoint, what they read and how they rank. And so you really want to combine them. And that's why we always encourage people too, is if you're doing video, you can optimize it on YouTube, but ultimately creating a blog post and creating a vlog out of it by transcribing it is what Google is looking for. So I think that's really great advice. Well, Saul, before we wrap up, obviously, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your insights, but how can somebody get in touch with you, get connected with you, and start engaging with you?
Yeah, look, Justin, the two best ways to get a hold of me, LinkedIn and then email, Saul, SAUL, @outcomesrocket.com. Our website is outcomesrocket.health. So if you want to just check out what we do and how we do it, we invite you to do that. And yeah, the opportunity to do more together is there. I welcome anyone that wants to connect. I definitely am a lover of healthcare, lover of communication. And so I look forward to meeting you one day.
Excellent. Well, thank you again so much, Saul, for joining us. And we'll have all of those links in the show notes as well. So you can easily get over to Saul's website, check out everything they got going on.
Thank you for listening to today's latest episode of the Patient Convert podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and review on your favorite podcast platform. We are on Apple, iTunes, Google, Stitcher, and Spotify, or you can sign up to receive the latest episode via email. Just check it out on my agency website or my personal website. And if you are looking for more amazing healthcare marketing information or just to engage, check us out at Entropy.com. And for any of my amazing physician liaisons out there interested in growing their physician referrals or learning the strategies that it takes to build highly engaged physician referral networks, check out my website, kellyknott.com, where I have free webinars, free downloads, and of course, my online physician liaison training course, Physician Liaison University. And as always, I'm a huge believer in connecting, engaging, and supporting one another. And the best way we can do that is networking. And I always connect with you guys on social media. And one of my biggest social media platforms is LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me there on LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter at Kelly Knott. And thank you guys again for listening to the Patient Convert podcast with your host, Kelly Knott.